Hello and welcome to World News Program Midnight Edition with me, Karim Zachary, and these are your headlines. Algeria strengthens its presence in multilateral chairs and officially requests to join the BRICS group. President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, meets a number of world leaders on the sidelines of the International Climate Conference in Sharm el-Sheikh. And in the U.S., campaigns close ahead of Tuesday midterm elections as the contest tightens between Republicans and Democrats. Hello again and welcome to the details. First in our news, Algeria has officially requested to join the BRICS through its special envoy in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Leila Zerougi. The request came months after the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, had expressed interest to join the bloc, which is the center of the new global economic system. The BRICS is the core of the new global economic order, with economies equivalent to $44 trillion, which represents a quarter of the global economy and contributes to half of global growth. Here are the details. Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune met a number of world leaders on the sidelines of the International Climate Conference in Sharm el-Sheikh. Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune met with his French counterpart Mr. Emmanuel Macron, who congratulated him on the success of the Arab Summit held in Algeria. President Tebboune also met his Bulgarian counterpart Roman Radif, whom he held fruitful talks with. Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune also held bilateral talks with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni after their meeting in Sharm el-Sheikh. President Tebboune also had a meeting with Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte. Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune also held several meetings with leaders of African and Arab countries. Pleasure shared. On Monday, Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune participated in the opening of the World Leaders Summit at the 27th Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Climate Change Convention. The Algerian President had arrived at the International Conference Center in Sharm el-Sheikh, where he was received by Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres.
لتغير المناخ كوب 27 الذي ينعقد في دورته الحالية.
The series of Zionist raids on Palestinian cities and regions has intensified in the last few days as 20 civilians were arrested in different parts of the West Bank. The Zionist raids were concentrated on Al-Arub, Beit Khalil, Beit Umar, Nablus, and Balata. Zionist forces continue their random arrest of civilians in the occupied Palestinian lands in violation of international laws and agreements. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that some 80,000 mobilized reservists have been deployed to Ukraine, out of over 300,000 called up since September 21st. However, Putin explained that only 50,000 of them are in combat units. Also, President Putin emphasized that issues related to the mobilization should be discussed with other heads of regions.
We now have about 50,000 in combat units, while the rest are not yet taking part in hostilities. But there are up to 80,000 in the zone of the special military operation. The rest are all just at training grounds. But attention must be given to everyone, wherever they are.
Still with the Russia-Ukraine file, the conflict is still living notable developments and confrontations. Besides the Russian shelling of Ukrainian cities, Kiev mayor announced for citizens of the Ukrainian capital that they had to be prepared for a total blackout, as well as the renewed pleas of the Russian deputy governor of Kherson region that more civilian evacuations have to be processed in the next few days. Osama Ayedi has the story.
Russia-Ukraine conflict is still witnessing major tide between the forces of the two countries. Analysts and observers have described the war in the east of Ukraine to be entering a further stage of street battles, which may be a start of one of the most dangerous and most decisive battles of the war. For his part, the Russian-installed deputy governor of Kherson region, Kirill Strumisov, renewed his plea for the evacuation of more civilians from the region. Kirill affirmed that there were no changes in nearby front-line positions of the Russian army, replying to the previous pledges that Russian forces had totally withdrawn from the territory.
There is no problem with food in the city. There are products available. Some pharmacies are not working at full capacity, but people can access social benefits. We are also working on this. Evacuation from Kherson city continues. We're now evacuating bedridden people who are unable to move by themselves.
For his part, the mayor of the Ukrainian capital, Vitaly Klitschko, called on the citizens of the city to be prepared for the worst during the next winter, explaining that if the Russian forces continue their strikes and shelling on the city's infrastructure, Kyiv will suffer total blackout. In an interview, Vitaly stated that the people will probably have no electricity nor water in the next winter, which will make life in the city unbearable. Klitschko stated earlier this month that 45,000 people in Kyiv already live with no electricity, appealing to the population for using energy sparingly.
Our enemies are doing everything to ensure that the city is without heat, electricity and water supplies, and in general, that we all die. This is their task. And the future of our country, and our future with you, each of us, depends on how we will be prepared for different situations, and how well we can withstand with them, and how well we can withstand them. Therefore, you need to be ready. We do not rule out such a possibility.
As Russia intensifies its attacks in the capital Kyiv, Ukrainian forces are pushing forward in the south. Residents of Ukraine's Russian-occupied city of Kherson received warning messages on their phones, urging them to evacuate as soon as possible. According to Ukraine's military, Russian soldiers warned civilians that Ukraine's army was preparing for a massive attack and told people to leave for the city's right bank immediately.
Still with the same file, White House spokeswoman Karine Jean-Pierre said on Monday that the United States' support for Ukraine will be unchanged and solid regardless of the outcome of Tuesday's midterm elections. Let's take a listen.
So we are confident that the United States' support for Ukraine will be unflinching and unwavering. That's what we believe, and that's how we see this going forward. You saw Jake Sullivan say the very same thing while he was in Kiev on Monday and reiterated the United States will continue to support Ukraine across a range of areas, whether it's security assistance, economic assistance, or human rights assistance. Members of Congress, Republicans and Democrat, have been clear about our enduring support for Ukraine, and under any scenario.
To a different story now, new Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson arrived for an official two-day visit to Turkey, following the invitation of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The visit will tackle all aspects of Turkey-Sweden relations and envisages the exchange of views on Sweden's application for membership to NATO, as well as Turkey-European Union relations and global and regional issues on the basis of the tripartite memorandum signed with strategic partner Sweden at the margin of the NATO Madrid summit. And in a meeting, Eurozone finance ministers discussed how to better coordinate support for economies against soaring energy prices to reduce the uncertainty that such schemes create for their 2023 budgets and to better prepare for a looming recession. Germany angered its European Union peers in September by announcing a plan to support households and businesses worth up to 200 billion euros, an amount few countries can match and which critics say threatens fair competition within the EU single market.
It's a delicate policy mix which we need to find because fiscal policy and monetary policy should not work on cross purposes. So we are not recommending broad-based fiscal stimulus, rather more prudent fiscal approach with temporary and targeted support measures. As regards the support measures, we are also done the assessment how temporary and how targeted support measures taken by member states are, and unfortunately, majority of those measures are not targeted. So we'll be discussing how maybe to do it in a more targeted way.
Back to Algeria now, but still with the economy. Algerian Minister of Energy and Mines, Mr. Mohamed Arqab, revealed that Algeria's hydrocarbon revenues are expected to exceed $50 billion by the end of this year. He explained that oil prices have recovered after the unprecedented collapse that the markets witnessed at the beginning of the year 2020 with the emergence and spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, stressing that the oil price hike by the end of September 2022 contributed to the improvement of the overall indicators of the Algerian economy. Tanzania on Monday held a special mass funeral for the 19 victims of Sunday's plane crash in Lake Victoria. The burial service was attended by Prime Minister Kassim Majaliwa, who confirmed that 26 people were rescued after the precision air flight from the coastal city of Dar es Salaam plunged into the water.
The more services there are, the more confidence, the more communication there is, the more hope and expectations it instills in people's mind, and that will further consolidate the peace we are trying to put in place. So, like I said, we are committed to honor the commitments we have made.
Migrants on board Norwegian-flagged rescue ship Geo Barents on Monday shouted, "Help us," from the vessel's stern as the charity operating the ship said it would go to court to try to overturn efforts by Italy's new right-wing government to prevent some of the people it had saved from the sea coming to land. The Italian government has ordered the ships to return to the sea, but their captains have so far refused. Two other non-governmental boats, the Ocean Viking and the Rise Above, are still at sea off Sicily, carrying around 300 migrants. To UK now, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak stated on Monday that he is optimistic about the cooperation of his country with European nations to tackle the illegal immigration, as he stated that illegal migrants still entering his country through the English Channel crossings using small boats. The cooperation between France and Britain had reached an agreement during the period of Boris Johnson in the Prime Ministry. However, the campaign of his predecessor, Liz Truss, triggered the relations to worsen. Sunak's meeting with French President Mr. Emmanuel Macron on the sidelines of the COP27 summit has again put the relations of the two countries to soar.
It was great to meet President Macron to talk about not just tackling illegal migration, but the range of other areas in which we want to cooperate closely with the French on. But also, it's remember that this is an issue that affects many countries. And actually, I've been talking to other European leaders as well about our shared challenge in tackling illegal migration. And I think there is an opportunity for us to work closely, not just with the French, but with other countries as well. You will hear more details about that in the coming weeks as those conversations happen amongst all our teams. But I'm actually leaving this with renewed confidence and optimism that working together with our European partners, we can make a difference, grip this challenge of illegal migration and stop people coming illegally.
The US midterm elections, which are scheduled to take place on Tuesday, have been witnessing a tight contest between Republicans and Democrats that are led by US President Joe Biden and former US President Donald Trump over who might control the US Congress. The details with Islam Sid.
One day left before the U.S. midterm elections, with President Joe Biden and his former counterpart Donald Trump spearheading the heated confrontation between Democrats and Republicans over who can win the majority of seats in the U.S. Congress. During a rally in New York, Biden joined the event to support New York Governor Kathy Hochul, reiterating that democracy is on the ballot on Tuesday.
Democracy is literally on the ballot. I've been making this case since I ran. You know, there are more than 300 Republican candidates for state, local, and federal office who are election deniers.
There's a lot of mega Republicans out there, and a lot of talking points about, oh, we're going to really make headrows. We're going to crush that strong blue fortitude in a place like New York. If we can get a stranglehold here in New York.
And that's why it is so important we all get out and vote.
In Nevada's close election, former President Bill Clinton joined the campaign of Democratic senatorial candidate Catherine Cortez Masto as locals urge voters to cast their ballots.
And I haven't been in office for more than 20 years. But I continue to study the economy. I continue to see what's going on here and what's going on around the world.
On the other side, Donald Trump held a rally in Miami that evening in favor of Florida Republican Senator Marco Rubio, hoping that a strong Republican turnout on Election Day would give a thrust for the 2024 campaign that is anticipated to start this month. Even Twitter owner Elon Musk recommended voters to pick Republican candidates for the U.S. chamber.
In order to make our country successful, safe, and glorious, I will probably have to do it again, but stay tuned.
It's universally acknowledged that the average U.S. citizen is driven by concerns over security and foremost economy as inflation hit the country. These elections are critical and could change everything in the U.S., as Americans have two contrasting views, that of current U.S. President Joe Biden or that of former President Donald Trump.
China urges Britain to end all forms of official trade with Taiwan after the UK Trade Policy Minister Greg Hands announced a visit to the island for the first in-person conversations since the onset of COVID.
There is only one China in the world, and Taiwan is an inalienable part of the Chinese territory. China firmly rejects any form of official exchanges with the Taiwan region by any countries having diplomatic ties with China. The One China principle is the political foundation for China and the UK to develop their bilateral relations.
Ethiopia's government and Tigray forces have established a telephone hotline following a truce struck last week. The African Union's chief mediator, Olusegun Obasanjo, announced on Monday Ethiopia's government and regional forces from Tigray agreed last Wednesday to cease hostilities after talks mediated by AU, a diplomatic breakthrough 2 years into a war that has killed thousands and displaced millions.
The first sign for me of the progress after the signing of the agreement is the fact that between them they have exchanged hotline by which they can call themselves if anything is happening.
And the more services there are, the more confidence there is, the more communication there is, and the more hope and expectation it instills in the people's mind, and that will further consolidate the peace we are trying to put in place. So, like I said, we are committed to honor the.
And for more international news, let's follow this news in brief roundup with Zahra Frajani.
Firefighters on Monday worked to put out flames at the accident scene where at least 7 people were killed and 11 others injured when a truck collided with a passenger bus in Turkey's eastern Agri province. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan announced 7 Turkish citizens passed away after the bus crashed with a truck and caught fire. European shares rose on Monday, reversing declines from the opening bell as a jump in travel stocks helped outweigh a drag from China-exposed luxury giants. The DAX gained around 1%, reaching more than 13,000 points midday. Health officials in China reiterated their commitment to strict COVID-19 curbs over the weekend, disappointing investors hoping for relief. Separately, data showed Chinese exports and imports both contracted in October and missed forecasts. The Kenyan Airways Pilots Union held a press conference on the third day of their strikes. Faced with threats of legal action from the Kenyan government, the pilots said they have made every attempt to maintain dialogue between the management of Kenya's Airways.
Contrary to reports circulating that we have refused to negotiate, we'd like to clarify that we have made all attempts to bridge the gap between Kenya's management and ourselves. We have sent our proposals both to Kenya Airways and the concerned ministries on Friday, Saturday, and yesterday.
In Bangui, the capital of the Central African Republic, several stations have not been supplied for 7 months. The Central African Republic, the second least developed country in the world, according to the UN, regularly experiences problems with the supply of hydrocarbons. But since March, the country has been going through a dramatic shortage. In the capital, motorcycle taxi drivers are abandoning their jobs or paying higher and higher prices for fuel.
75 years after India's independence, its history is being rewritten all over the country as the Bharatiya Janata Party, or as known as BJP, which is recently or presently in power, tries to further its own Hindu nationalist agenda. More with Sufyan Kanturi.
The rich family home of India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, a leader in freedom movement and Gandhi's close confidant, is now a museum where admirers come to pay respect. However, this history is being rewritten all over the nation, 75 years after the country's independence, as the Bharatiya Janata Party, as known as BJP, which is currently in power, works to advance its own Hindu nationalist agenda.
And all those who are trying to redo this history are trying to do it in the context of what they want to see India in the present, and future. So that is the main issue. Our past is being redone, reread or rewritten in the context of the happenings in future.
The BJP is accused by critics of undervaluing the contributions of Muslims to the Indian history and society and appending established narratives to suit its viewpoint.
You see, I don't understand. If you talk about freedom struggle and you teach this freedom struggle in textbooks, Gandhi, Patel, Nehru, Maulana Azad, Subhash Chandra Bose, Bhagat Singh, and so many others. These are the people you have to talk about. And all these people are part of our history textbooks. They have been part of our history textbooks. What is the complaint? I just don't understand what is the complaint. Complaint is
Hindu nationalists accuse historians of glorifying these Mughal emperors, forgetting the accomplishments of Hindu lords. According to them, historians have also exaggerated the role of Congress by obscuring nationalist figures that the BJP venerates. As a result, contemporary history is also being reshuffled.
And finally in our news, more than 50,000 runners made their way through a 26.2-mile course. The winners of the New York City Marathon celebrated their historic victories with a visit to the Empire State Building. The marathon was at full capacity for the first time since 2019. It was cancelled in 2020 and downsized in 2021 due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
It's the first time you come to New York, and then I'm winner for New York. I'm happy because this year I will run in Boston, but I'm winner for Boston Marathon, and then I will come New York. So this year I will win 2 major marathons. So I'm happy because I will win New York. So maybe next year I will come back again. Maybe I will win.
And with this, our news comes to a close. For more news, you can visit our social media platforms as well as our website. Thank you for keeping it here on All 24 News. Bye for now.